9-year high. In fact, we stayed out of the mortgage rate market altogether, and now they are lower than ever before. You see a pattern here? Wicked, I do.
Yeah, I do. And you know what? And here's the thing with what's going on with the credit card rates going up, and that is because the issuers are saying, look, we can't do our penalty pricing if some, delinquent borrower, defaults or doesn't pay the credit card. This new legislation is saying they can't assess fees, they can't attach higher rates. So what the banks are doing is they're jacking up rates ahead of time. Hang on. No, they're jacking up rates ahead of time. What's going on is very serious for the middle class borrower because about $2.5 trillion worth of credit lines are being pulled by credit card issuers, and they get subject to now predatory lending or even, to pawn shops or loan sharks if you're at the lower end of the economic scale.
Most of the increases is due to default on credit cards. People are more likely to default on their credit cards before they're going to give up their house. So the first thing they're going to pay is their mortgage. Less people are applying for mortgages. That's why the rates have to come down, and they're more closely tied to the Fed rates.
Do you find it ironic, though, that that's what's going on?
Well, listen, I think it's ironic, but is it actually connected? I mean, the market is what the market is.
It's absolutely connected. The businesses are responding to reform legislation that handcuffs them.
I get 700 applications for credit cards every day with
really?
Maybe not every day.
Yeah. I don't get a
0% interest rate.
I've got such a danger signal with it.
You're very lucky.
Yeah. So you're okay, but Jonathan, obviously, this does call into question the effectiveness of government intervention to do something where we're getting the exact opposite result. Now, Chris makes a couple of good reasons why that's happening. Nevertheless, it is happening and calling into question government involvement, period.
Well, and Neil, I have to say, though, I respectfully disagree with you that we've had no intervention in the mortgage market. I mean, both housing and credit cards
we didn't include mortgage-backed securities, and you knew that, but you had to bring that up here.
Well, government dominated, Neil, government
panelist you are.
I don't mean to disrespect, but government dominated these markets beforehand, and they dominate them even more so.
Well, that was then an interference that worked to the borrower's advantage, right?
Well, it certainly didn't work to the economy's advantage, Neil, and hasn't, or the continued intervention hasn't worked either. I mean, 50% of those participating in the president's foreclosure prevention process have dropped out. And to your point, and to EMAC's point, since the card program, the new financial card regulations were passed, credit availability has gone down.
Well, you're right about that. By the way, rates would have been low, Johnny, with or without the government, intervening in mortgage-backed securities. But having said that, Chris, the question I want to raise with you is, do you think when you bang your head against the wall enough and you see very little for all the efforts that maybe they cease and desist?
Listen, when I was 18, they gave me a credit card. I completely screwed up my credit. This new act.
You got one at 18?
At 18, when I was at the University of Albany, they gave me a credit card. I used it. I spent it on stuff I didn't need.
For a credit card.
And now this bill makes it harder for you to do that. You can't just give credit away willy-nilly.
This is what makes me crazy. This is what makes small businesses and people who rely on their credit cards to pay tuition costs. And I get it, you shouldn't do it, but this is what's happening. It is hurting the middle class. It's hurting the lower income people, and it's hurting the small businesses who use credit cards to revolve. They shouldn't do it. We get it. But what's going on is businesses and banks are responding to very intrusive reform legislation that was erroneous in its logic. And what they're doing is they're cutting back on credit lines that these small businesses need to survive. You're not listening to me. We're talking about small businesses that need those credit lines. And
Jonathan, to that point, what is so bad about letting people know when you're about to get gouged?
Because, Neil, you put a heck of a lot of faith and credit in government regulators to know what the right way to run the economy is. What is the right interest rate?
Disclosure. That's not the issue. The issue is not
that's a big part of it.
No, it is a big part of it, but the big part of it is they're not allowed to do penalty pricing when somebody is delinquent on their credit card, so they're jacking up the rates ahead of time.
They are allowed to do penalty pricing.
They just have to be
Jonathan, answer that real quickly.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. What you consider to be an usurious interest rate, what you consider to be penalty pricing, these are the functions of a free economy. And in a free economy, it works itself out. But when you got Barney Frank out there telling you what the right interest rate is, what the right credit cycle it is,
when you have a 20-page application for a credit card that discloses terms that most Americans can't understand and can't read.
That's not true.
You got to have faith.
I wish we had more time, but your time and your credit has expired.
Well, thank you for having us.
A little more time.